Poor single mom let a strange man and his daughter stay the night during a storm. By morning, sunlight was burning his skin like acid. Too late, she realized. The polite stranger wasn't just a vampire, he was a king. And the hunters tracking him now knew exactly where she lived. The windshield wipers couldn't keep up with the rain. Mara's hands ached as she gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white under the flickering streetlights. It was past midnight, and Highway 9 stretched empty before her like a dark tunnel. She'd just finished her third cleaning shift of the week, scrubbing toilets at the Riverside Hotel until her back screamed, and all she wanted was to collapse into bed before Evan woke up asking for breakfast. The storm hit harder. Thunder cracked so loud her rusty Honda shuddered. That's when she saw them. Two figures stood outside Jerry's gas station, which had closed hours ago. A man and a small child, both soaked to the bone. The little girl couldn't have been older than 6, pressed against the man's side like she was trying to disappear into him. Mara's foot hovered over the gas pedal.
Keep driving.
It's not your problem. But the girl's dress, thin, summer cotton, clung to her tiny frame. She wasn't even wearing a jacket. Damn it, Mara muttered, pulling onto the gravel lot. She rolled down her window just enough to shout over the rain. You folks need help. The man turned, and Mara's breath caught. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with sharp features that looked carved from marble. His dark hair was plastered to his forehead, and his eyes, even in the terrible light, seemed to glow with an odd intensity. He wore an expensive-looking black coat, completely inappropriate for the weather, and held the girl's hand with surprising gentleness. Our car died, he said. His voice was smooth, cultured, with an accent she couldn't quite place. European, maybe. I've been trying to call for assistance, but there's no signal. Mara glanced at the empty road behind her.
No headlights.
No help coming. Where were you headed? Anywhere with shelter. He looked down at the shivering child. My daughter needs to get warm. The word daughter did it. Mara thought of Evan, safe at home with Mrs. Chun from upstairs watching him. What if this were them, stranded in a storm? I can't leave you out here. She unlocked the doors. Get in. I'll take you to my place. It's not much, but it's dry. The man hesitated, studying her face with unnerving focus. Then he nodded. Thank you.
Truly.
They climbed into the back seat, the little girl silent as a ghost. Mara caught a glimpse of her in the rearview mirror. Pale skin, enormous dark eyes, and an expression far too serious for a child. I'm Mara, she said, pulling back onto the highway. Mara Reeves. Aldrich, he didn't offer a last name. This is Leora. The girl said nothing. The drive took 20 minutes. Mara lived in Pinewood Apartments, a sagging complex on the wrong side of Clearwater where rent was cheap and questions were few. She led them up the exterior stairs to her second-floor unit, fumbling with her keys. Sorry about the mess, she said, pushing open the door. I wasn't expecting company. The apartment was small, a cramped living room that bled into a kitchen, one bedroom she shared with Evan, and a bathroom the size of a closet. Toys littered the floor. Dishes sat in the sink. But it was warm and dry, and right now that was enough. Mrs. Chin dozed on the couch, her reading glasses crooked on her nose. Mara touched her shoulder gently. Mrs. Chin? I'm back. The elderly woman startled awake.
Oh.
Mara? Dear, she blinked at the strangers. Who? They got stranded in the storm. They'll just stay tonight. Mrs. Chin looked doubtful but knew better than to argue with Mara when she used that tone. She gathered her things and shuffled toward the door, casting one last suspicious glance at Aldrich before leaving. Your son? Aldrich asked, nodding toward the bedroom where Evan's door stood ajar.
Yeah.
He's 7-inch. Mara grabbed towels from the bathroom.
Here.
You can dry off. I'll make coffee. But as she moved toward the kitchen, she noticed something strange. Aldrich had positioned himself in the corner of the living room, away from the overhead light. Leora stayed glued to his side, her small hand clutching his coat. Neither of them had moved toward the towels. You okay? Mara asked. Fine. Aldrich's smile didn't reach his eyes. Just tired. Mara put the kettle on and pulled out bread for sandwiches. You must be hungry. When's the last time you ate? We're fine. The girl needs food. She's had enough. The sharpness in his voice made Mara turn. Aldrich stood rigid, his jaw tight, and for just a moment, his eyes reflected the kitchen light like an animal's. Mara's pulse quickened. Look, if you don't want the food, that's fine. But she's a kid. I said she's fine. Aldrich's tone softened immediately. Forgive me. It's been a difficult day. Mara didn't push it. She made the sandwiches anyway and left them on the counter. The storm outside intensified. Lightning strobed through the windows, followed by thunder that rattled the walls. Then, abruptly, the lights went out. Mara cursed. Power's out. Happens all the time here. I've got candles somewhere. Don't. Aldrich's voice came from the darkness, startlingly close. I can see fine. How can you? A match flared as Mara finally found her emergency candles. The warm light spread across the room, and she gasped. Aldrich stood by the window, perfectly still, his head tilted as if listening to something far away. And in the candlelight, his skin looked almost translucent, blue veins visible beneath the surface. Leora sat on the floor now, staring at Mara with those enormous eyes. What are you listening to? Mara whispered. Aldrich turned slowly. The storm. Nothing more. But Mara didn't believe him. She'd lived through enough hard years to recognize when someone was lying. There's a couch, she said carefully. And some blankets. You can sleep here. I'll be in the bedroom with my son. Door stays unlocked in case you need anything. You're very trusting, Aldrich observed. No, Mara said. I'm just too tired to be scared. It wasn't true. Her heart hammered as she retreated to the bedroom, checking the lock on Evan's window before sliding under the covers beside her sleeping son. Through the thin walls, she could hear nothing from the living room. No movement.
No breathing.
Just silence. And somehow that was worse. Mara couldn't sleep. She lay in the darkness, listening to Evan's soft breathing beside her, but her mind refused to quiet. Every creak of the old building made her tense. She kept thinking about Aldrich's eyes in the candlelight, the way he'd moved through her apartment like he could map it blindfolded. Around 3 a.m, she heard it, a faint sound from the living room. Not footsteps exactly, more like fabric shifting. She slipped out of bed and cracked the door open. Aldrich stood at the window, silhouette sharp against the storm-dark glass. Leora sat on the couch, small and still as a porcelain doll. Neither had touched the blankets Mara left out. The sandwiches remained on the counter, untouched. Aldrich's head turned, though Mara hadn't made a sound. Did we wake you?
No.
Just checking if you needed anything. She stepped into the hallway, keeping her distance. Your daughter should sleep. She doesn't need much rest. What kind of answer was that? Mara glanced at Leora, who stared back with that unsettling intensity. The girl hadn't spoken a single word since entering the apartment. Is she okay? She hasn't said anything. Leora speaks when necessary. Aldrich moved away from the window, and Mara noticed he stayed in the shadows, avoiding even the dim emergency light from the hallway. You should rest, Mara. We'll be gone by morning. The storm hasn't stopped. Nevertheless, thunder boomed overhead, and the building's ancient wiring hummed. The backup hallway light flickered, brightened, then went dead. Complete darkness swallowed the apartment. Mara fumbled for the wall. Great. Now the emergency lights are out too. 2 men. Aldrich's voice cut through the dark, low and urgent. Walking past the building. Slowing down. One of them is looking up at your window. Mara froze. How can you possibly know that? You can't see anything. I can hear their footsteps.
Their breathing. He paused.
One just whispered your apartment number. Ice flooded Mara's veins. You're serious. Very. Who are they? Hopefully no one, but the tension in Aldrich's voice suggested otherwise. Stay quiet. Mara's hands trembled as she pressed against the wall. Outside, she heard it now too, Footsteps on the exterior stairs.
Heavy.
Deliberate. They stopped at her landing. Someone tried her doorknob. Mara's breath caught. She'd locked it. She always locked it. The knob rattled again, more insistent. Then silence. After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps retreated down the stairs. Mara didn't move until she heard a car engine start in the parking lot below. Only then did she dare breathe. "They're gone," Aldrich said. "For now. For now." Mara's voice cracked. "Who the hell were they? Why were they trying to get in?" "I don't know." That's a lie. She couldn't see him in the darkness, but she felt his presence. Too close. "You knew they were coming. That's why you were at the window. What did you do? Are you running from someone?" A long pause. "Yes," Aldrich finally admitted. "But not for the reasons you think." "Then tell me the truth." "You wouldn't believe it." "Try me." Mara's fear was curdling into anger now. "I let you into my home. My son is sleeping 20 feet away. You owe me an explanation." Movement in the darkness. Aldrich crossing the room. When he spoke again, his voice came from right beside her, and Mara smelled something strange. Not cologne. Something older, like aged leather and copper. "The truth would put you in more danger than ignorance," he said quietly. "Trust me on this. I don't trust you at all." Smart woman. The backup lights suddenly flickered back on, bathing the room in pale emergency glow. Mara gasped. Aldrich stood inches away, and in the sickly light, she could see his skin was wrong. Too pale. The veins in his neck stood out like dark rivers. And when he breathed, if he was breathing at all, his chest barely moved. "What's wrong with you?" she whispered.
His jaw tightened.
"Nothing contagious." "That's not what I meant." A small hand tugged Mara's sleeve. She looked down to find Leora staring up at her, those dark eyes full of something that looked almost like apology. "He's sick," Leora said, her voice barely audible. The first word she'd spoken. "The light hurts him. The sun will be worse." "Leora," Aldrich warned. But the girl continued, urgent now. "We need to leave before dawn. If we don't, he'll—" She stopped, glancing at Aldrich with clear fear. "I'll what?" Mara demanded. "What happens at dawn?" Aldrich's expression was unreadable. "You should get some sleep, Mara. We'll be gone in a few hours. You're not going anywhere until you tell me what's happening." "No," his voice held finality. "Some truths are dangerous. Especially this 1 inch." He took Leora's hand and guided her back to the couch, settling into the darkest corner of the room. The girl curled against his side, and within moments, both were perfectly still.
Too still.
Mara watched them for a long minute, her skin crawling. Something was deeply wrong here, wrong in a way that defied rational explanation. But Evan was in the next room, and the door had a lock. That would have to be enough. She returned to bed, but didn't sleep. She just lay there, watching the first gray hints of dawn creep through the curtains, and wondered what she'd invited into her home. The first rays of sunlight crept through the living room window at 6:47 a.m. Mara knew the exact time because she'd been watching the clock, waiting for Aldrich and Leora to leave as promised. Evan would wake soon, and she didn't want him asking questions she couldn't answer. She heard movement in the living room, fast, urgent. Then a sound that made her blood freeze. A man's strangled gasp of pain. Mara threw off the covers and rushed out, stopping dead in the doorway. Aldrich had collapsed against the wall, his hand raised to shield his face from the thin beam of morning light streaming through the gap in the curtains. Where the sunlight touched his exposed wrist, his skin was blistering, actual blisters rising and splitting, smoke curling from the wounds. "Oh my God." Mara lunged forward, yanking the curtains closed. The room plunged back into shadow. Aldrich slumped to the floor, cradling his burned hand. His breathing came in ragged gasps, and in the dim light, Mara could see his skin had turned an even more alarming shade of gray. Leora knelt beside him, her small face stricken with terror. "Please," she begged, looking at Mara with tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please help him." He'll die if we can't get him somewhere dark. What's happening? Is he allergic to sunlight? Is it some kind of... Mara stopped, the words dying in her throat. Because Aldrich was looking at her now, and his eyes had changed. The pupils had expanded until they were almost entirely black, and something ancient and inhuman stared out from behind them. Basement, he managed, his voice barely human.
Dark. Now.
Mara's mind screamed at her to run, to grab Evan and get out. But Leora's desperate sobs, the child's genuine fear, she couldn't ignore it. I don't have a basement. Just a laundry room downstairs. No windows. Take us there. Mara grabbed a thick blanket from the couch and threw it over Aldrich's head and shoulders. Can you walk? He nodded, struggling to his feet with Leora supporting him. Mara checked the hallway. Empty, thank God, and led them quickly down the interior stairs to the building's shared laundry facility in the lower level. The windowless room smelled like detergent and mildew. One bare bulb flickered overhead. Mara flipped it off, and darkness enveloped them. Aldrich collapsed onto the concrete floor, tearing the blanket away. Even in the pitch black, Mara could hear his labored breathing slowly evening out. Someone better start explaining, she said, her back pressed against the washing machines.
Right now.
Silence. Then Aldrich's voice, steadier now. You saved my life just now. I closed a curtain. You could have let the sun kill me. You should have. You're not making sense, but even as Mara said it, pieces were clicking together in her mind. Pieces she didn't want to fit. The avoidance of light. The way he didn't eat. The inhuman stillness.
The eyes.
No, she whispered. No, that's insane. Is it? Aldrich asked quietly. What does your gut tell you, Mara? Her gut told her to run. Her gut told her she'd let a monster into her home. But her gut also told her, impossibly, that he was telling the truth. You're saying you're a vampire. The word felt ridiculous on her tongue.
Actual vampire.
Yes, vampires aren't real. And yet I'm sitting in your laundry room, burned by sunlight, having this conversation. Mara's legs gave out. She slid down the washing machine until she was sitting on the cold floor. This can't be happening. I understand your fear, Aldrich said. But I mean you no harm. I never did. We only needed shelter for one night. The men last night. They were looking for you. Yes. What do they want? To kill me, his voice was matter-of-fact. And to kill Leora. Mara's eyes had adjusted enough to make out shapes now. She could see Leora's small silhouette huddled against Aldrich, trembling.
Why?
She's a child. It's complicated. Uncomplicated, Mara's voice hardened. You're in my building. Those men know where I live now. My son is upstairs alone. So talk. Aldrich was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that suggested centuries of history. I was a king among my kind. I ruled for over 400 years, maintaining peace between vampires and humans. Not perfectly, but better than the chaos before. 3 months ago, members of my own court betrayed me. They want to return to the old ways. Hunting. Bloodshed.
Va.
And Leora? She is not my daughter by blood. Her family were hunters, humans who killed vampires. But they sought peace too. When her parents were murdered by my enemies, I swore an oath to protect her. She's all that remains of a bloodline that could have bridged our worlds. Mara tried to process this. It sounded like a fever dream. Why is she so important? That, Aldrich said carefully, is a discussion for another time. Right now, we need to leave Clearwater before more hunters arrive. Those men saw this building, Mara. They may not know which apartment yet, but they'll return. And when they find out you helped me, he stopped. You're not safe here anymore. No, Mara stood up, panic rising. No, I have a life here.
My son, my job.
Will mean nothing if you're dead. The door at the top of the stairs suddenly rattled. Someone was trying to open it. In the darkness, Mara heard Aldrich rise, positioning himself between her and the door. Too late, he whispered. They're already here. The rattling stopped. Footsteps retreated up the stairs. Mara's heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Was that them? Just a tenant, Aldrich said, though his body remained tense. But it reminds us we can't stay here. The sun will set in approximately 11 hours. We need supplies and a plan before then. 11 hours? You expect me to hide you for 11 hours? Mara rubbed her face. I have to get Evan ready for school. I have to act normal. No school today. Aldrich's tone left no room for argument. Keep him home. Tell him you're both sick. You can't just. Mara, he moved closer, and she could see his face now, still too pale, but healing. The burns on his hand had already begun to fade. Those hunters will canvass the area today. They'll ask questions. If Evan mentions strangers at home, if he describes Leora or me. Fine, Mara's voice cracked.
Fine.
But I need to go into town. We need food, and I can't let my landlord think anything's wrong. I'm already behind on rent. Too dangerous. I'll be careful. I'll keep my eyes open. She started toward the door. You two stay here. Don't move, don't make noise. There's a lock on the inside, use it. Aldrich caught her wrist. His grip was gentle but impossibly strong. If you see anyone asking questions about strangers, anyone who moves wrong or watches too carefully, run. Moves wrong. You'll know it when you see it. 2 hours later, Mara walked down Main Street with Evan's hand in hers, trying to look like everything was normal. She told him they were playing hooky, making it an adventure. His excited chatter about getting donuts almost made her forget the vampire hiding in her laundry room. Almost. The hardware store first. She needed blackout material for the windows. Then the grocery store for actual food. The morning sun felt too bright, too exposing. Every face in the crowd could be a threat. She was paying for poster board and duct tape when she noticed them. 2 people standing outside the barbershop across the street. A man and a woman, both impossibly still in the bustling morning crowd. They wore dark clothes despite the warm day, and something about their posture made Mara's skin crawl. The woman's head turned slowly, scanning the street with mechanical precision. Moves wrong, Aldrich had said. Mara's hands shook as she took her change. Come on, baby, she told Evan, keeping her voice light. Let's get those donuts. But she watched the pair from the corner of her eye. They'd started moving down the street, stopping at each shop. The man entered the coffee house while the woman waited outside, her face tilted up as if smelling the air. Mara steered Evan toward the bakery, her pulse racing. Through the window, she watched the man emerge from the coffee house and say something to his partner. They moved to the next shop, the bookstore. They were searching, systematically, building by building. Mommy, you're hurting my hand, Evan whimpered. Mara loosened her grip. Sorry, sweetie. Let's make this quick. Inside the bakery, she kept her back to the window while Mrs. Patterson boxed up a half-dozen donuts. But in the reflection of the glass pastry case, she could see the street behind her. The 2 hunters had stopped in front of the bakery. Seen a tall man, dark hair, traveling with a little girl? The woman's voice drifted through the open door. She was questioning old Mr. Fletcher on the sidewalk. Can't say I have, Mr. Fletcher replied. When would this have been? Last night, during the storm. Mara's blood turned to ice. She grabbed the donut box and practically dragged Evan toward the back exit. Mrs. Reeves? Your change, Mrs. Patterson called. Keep it. Mara pushed through the rear door into the alley, her mind racing. They knew about last night. They knew about the storm. How long before they connected it to her? She hurried Evan back to the car, parked 3 blocks away. Her hands fumbled with the keys. Mommy, what's wrong? Evan asked, picking up on her fear now.
Nothing, baby.
We just need to get home. She drove back to the apartment, taking side streets, checking the rear-view mirror constantly. No one followed, at least no one she could see. Aldrich was waiting inside the apartment when she burst through the door. He must have heard her coming, must have risked the minimal daylight filtering through the curtained windows to get upstairs. They're in town, Mara gasped. 2 of them. going shop to shop, asking about you and Leora. Aldrich's expression darkened. Describe them.
Pale.
Really pale like you. Moving weird, stiff. The woman smelled the air like she was. Mara stopped. Like she was tracking something. Vampires, Aldrich confirmed. Young ones, turned recently. That's why they can tolerate brief daylight exposure. But their loyalty to my enemies makes them dangerous. He moved to the window, staying behind the curtain, and looked out at the parking lot below. What do they want? To find me? To claim the bounty on my head, he turned back to her. And now they're close. Too close. Then what do we do? Aldrich's jaw set. We run. All of us. Tonight. As soon as the sun sets. If we stay here, they'll find us before morning. Mara thought of her apartment, her job, the small life she'd built from nothing. This is all I have. I know, Aldrich's voice softened. And I'm sorry. But staying means death. For all of us. Leora appeared in the bedroom doorway, Evan peeking out behind her curiously. Pack light, Aldrich said. Only what you need. We leave in 6 hours. The sun was still an orange smear on the horizon when Aldrich said, It's time. Mara had spent the last 6 hours in a fog, mechanically stuffing clothes into garbage bags while Evan asked endless questions she couldn't answer. She told him they were going on a surprise trip and adventure. The lie tasted like ash. Where exactly are we going? She asked, watching Aldrich peer through the curtain's edge. The dying light made him wince, but he could tolerate it now. Away from here. I'll know the destination once we're moving. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have, he pulled back from the window. There are safe places, hidden sanctuaries my kind established centuries ago. But I need darkness to navigate properly. Mara hoisted 2 bags onto her shoulder. My car's in the back lot. We'll have to move fast. I'll carry Leora. You bring Evan. No stops, no hesitation. They moved through the apartment one last time. Mara looked at the lumpy couch where she'd read Evan bedtime stories, the kitchen table where they'd shared countless meals of mac and cheese. 7 months of rent, always scraped together at the last minute. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. Mommy? Evan tugged her sleeve. Are we coming back? She couldn't lie to those trusting eyes. I don't know, baby. Aldrich cracked open the door, scanning the hallway.
Clear.
Move. They descended the stairs in silence. Aldrich had Leora wrapped in a heavy blanket despite the warm evening, her face barely visible. To anyone watching, they might look like a family hauling laundry. Mara's Honda sat in the back corner of the lot, rusting but reliable. She popped the trunk, and Aldrich immediately climbed inside, pulling Leora in with him. What are you doing? Mara hissed. The back windows aren't tinted enough. Even twilight sun through glass could weaken me. He arranged himself awkwardly in the cramped space. We need to be hidden until full darkness anyway. You can't breathe back there. I don't need to breathe much. At her horrified expression, he added, I'm dead, Mara. Mostly. Breathing is optional. She slammed the trunk harder than necessary and buckled Evan into the back seat. Her hands shook as she started the engine. The car sputtered, coughed, then caught. Thank God. Mara pulled out of the lot onto Maple Street, forcing herself to drive normally. Not too fast. Not suspicious. Just another single mom running evening errands. They were 2 blocks away when she saw the black sedan in her rearview mirror. It had appeared from nowhere, sliding out from a side street to follow at a precise distance. The windows were tinted so dark they seemed to absorb light. Aldrich, she said quietly. We have company. A muffled response from the trunk. How many cars?
1.
Black sedan. They're keeping pace. Can you see the driver? Mara squinted at the mirror. The windshield was tinted too, but she caught a glimpse of pale hands on the steering wheel. I think so.
Pale.
Could be one of them. Take the next right. Speed up gradually. Mara's heart hammered as she turned onto Oak Avenue, pressing the gas pedal down. The Honda protested, but accelerated. The sedan matched her speed exactly. They're still following. Left at the light. Don't stop. It's red. Do it. Mara gritted her teeth and ran the red light, horns blaring behind her. The sedan followed without hesitation, running the light with inhuman timing. Mommy, you went through a red. Evan's voice was scared now. I know, baby. It's okay. We're playing a game. I don't like this game. Neither did Mara. She took another turn, then another, weaving through residential streets. The sedan stayed with them like a shadow. I can't lose them. From the trunk. Highway.
Get to the highway.
More traffic, harder to corner us. Mara spotted the on-ramp ahead and floored it. The Honda shuddered as it hit 60, 70. The sedan accelerated effortlessly, closing the distance. They merged onto Highway 9, the same road where this nightmare had started. Cars flew past in the gathering darkness. Mara wove between them, her knuckles white on the wheel. The sedan pulled alongside them in the left lane. Mara risked a glance and immediately wished she hadn't. The driver was a woman with platinum blonde hair and skin like paper. She turned to look directly at Mara and smiled, a terrible smile that showed too many teeth. Then the sedan swerved. Metal shrieked as it clipped Mara's bumper. The Honda fishtailed wildly. Mara fought the wheel, barely keeping them on the road. Evan screamed. Hold on, Mara shouted. The trunk exploded open from inside. Aldrich launched himself onto the roof of the moving car, then leaped, onto the hood of the sedan. Even through her panic, Mara saw it. Impossible speed, impossible strength, something that defied physics. The sedan swerved violently. Aldrich smashed through the windshield. Both vehicles careened across 2 lanes. Mara slammed the brakes, watching in horror as the sedan spun out, crashed through the guardrail, and tumbled down the embankment in a shower of sparks. She pulled onto the shoulder, gasping. Other cars slowed, some stopping. Someone would call 911. Mommy. Evan was crying now. A figure emerged from the wreckage below. Aldrich, carrying a limp Leora. He scaled the embankment with inhuman grace and yanked open the passenger door.
Drive. Now.
Mara drove. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. In the rearview mirror, she could see flames rising from the crashed sedan. Did you kill them? Her voice sounded hollow.
No.
But I slowed them down. Aldrich buckled Leora into the seat beside Evan. The girl was unconscious, a thin trickle of blood at her temple. Head north. We need distance. What are you? The question burst out. What are you really? Because that wasn't, people can't. I know, Aldrich's voice was gentle. And I'm sorry you had to see it. But now you understand why running was our only option. Mara looked at Evan, wide-eyed and terrified in the back seat. At Leora, pale and bleeding. At Aldrich, who'd just torn through a windshield and walked away. Who are you? She whispered. Before all this. A king, Aldrich said quietly. Now I'm just a refugee. Like you. They drove for 3 hours before Mara's eyes started closing involuntarily. The white lines on the highway blurred together, and twice she drifted onto the shoulder before jerking awake. You need rest, Aldrich said. He'd been silent for miles, watching the darkness outside. I've fine. You're falling asleep at the wheel with your son in the back seat, his voice was firm. There's a motel ahead. We'll stop. The Starlight Motel appeared like a mirage in the darkness, a sad, single-story strip with a flickering neon sign and half-empty parking lot. The kind of place that took cash and didn't ask questions.
Perfect.
Mara pulled into a spot at the far end, away from the office. We need 2 rooms. 1 room. 2 beds. We stay together. Aldrich pulled a thick roll of bills from his coat. I'll get it. Less suspicious than a woman with 2 children checking in after midnight. He returned 10 minutes later with a key. Room 117, last door on the end. Inside, the room smelled like cigarettes and industrial cleaner. 2 sagging double beds, a bathroom the size of a closet, and curtains that looked like they hadn't been washed since the 90s. But the door had a deadbolt, and right now, that was all that mattered. Evan collapsed onto the nearest bed, exhausted beyond tears. Leora sat in the corner chair, conscious now but silent. She hadn't spoken since the crash. Mara locked the door, checked the window locks, then locked the door again. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. "You should eat," Aldrich said, nodding at the vending machines outside. The boy, too. "I'm not hungry." Mara, he stepped closer, and in the harsh fluorescent light, she could see his face clearly for the first time since they'd fled. The burns from Dawn had healed completely, but he looked tired in a way that seemed bone-deep. "You've been running on adrenaline for hours. Your body needs fuel. Let me watch over them while you take care of yourself." She wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. She grabbed some bills from her purse and stumbled outside. The vending machine hummed in the quiet night. Mara fed it crumpled dollars, watching candy bars and chip bags tumble down. The mundane normalcy of it almost made her laugh. 24 hours ago, her biggest problem was making rent. Now she was on the run with a vampire king. A vampire king who'd saved her life, who'd leaped onto a moving car without hesitation. She was loading her arms with snacks when she heard it, an engine, too quiet, pulling into the parking lot. Mara froze. A black SUV rolled past the office, lights off. It moved slowly, deliberately, like something stalking prey. The same way the sedan had moved before attacking them on the highway. She dropped the snacks and ran. "Aldrich." She burst into the room. "They're here." He was at the window instantly, peering through the curtains. "How many vehicles?" "One SUV. I don't know how many inside." Aldrich's jaw clenched. "They tracked us. Probably followed our scent from the highway." He turned to Leora. "Can you walk?" The girl nodded. "Good. We go out the bathroom window. Mara, get Evan up." But it was too late. The window exploded inward in a shower of glass. A figure landed in the room, a man in a black suit, moving with that same wrong fluidity. His eyes locked onto Aldrich, and he smiled. "Your Majesty," he said mockingly. "The court sends its regards." Aldrich shoved Mara toward the bathroom. "Go." "I'm not leaving." "Go." The hunter lunged. Aldrich met him mid-leap, and they crashed into the far wall hard enough to crack the plaster. Evan screamed. Mara grabbed him, pulling him toward the bathroom, but the door burst open from outside. 2 more hunters. A woman and another man. "The human and the children," the woman said coldly. "Kill them all." Time slowed. Mara saw the woman's hand rise, fingers curved into claws. Saw Evan's terrified face. Saw Leora standing frozen by the bed. Then instinct overrode fear. Mara grabbed the lamp from the nightstand and swung it with everything she had. It connected with the woman's skull in a satisfying crunch. The hunter stumbled backward, more surprised than hurt. "Car keys," Aldrich shouted, still grappling with the first hunter. "Mara, the keys." She threw them. Aldrich caught them one-handed, then used the other to drive his opponent's face into the television. The screen shattered. Out the door. "Run." Mara scooped up Evan and ran, Leora at her heels. Behind them, she heard crashes, screams, the terrible sounds of violence. She didn't look back. The parking lot was chaos. Mara's Honda sat 20 feet away. She sprinted for it, fumbling with the passenger door. A hand grabbed her shoulder and spun her around. The male hunter from the room. His face was already healing from where Aldrich had struck him, skin knitting together like time-lapse footage. "Nowhere to run, human," he hissed. Mara did the only thing she could think of. She hit the gas pedal of the car behind her, a delivery truck with the keys still in the ignition, and threw it into reverse. The truck lurched backward, slamming into the hunter with a sickening thud. He went down hard, trapped beneath the rear wheels. Mara stood there, gasping, unable to believe what she'd just done. "Impressive."
She spun.
Aldrich stood in the motel doorway, bloodied but alive. He carried the unconscious female hunter by the neck. "You saved my life," he said quietly. Again, I hit him with a truck.
Yes.
You did. Something shifted in Aldrich's expression. Surprise, respect, maybe something more. No human has fought for me in 3 centuries. Most run. You stayed. I didn't think. Mara's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the pavement. Aldrich released the hunter, letting her crumple beside her companion. Then he knelt in front of Mara, his dark eyes intense. "By the old laws, a debt has been created. You saved my life selflessly, asking nothing in return." He took her hand, and she felt something pulse between them, a warmth that spread up her arm like electricity. "I am bound to you now. By oath and blood. Your life and mine are connected." "What does that mean?" "It means," Aldrich said softly, "I will protect you and your son until my final death. This I swear." The warmth flared brighter, then faded. Mara stared at their joined hands, at the vampire kneeling before her. "I just wanted to go home," she whispered. "I know. But that path is closed now." He helped her to her feet. "We need to leave. More will come." This time, Mara didn't argue. They drove until the sun threatened the horizon, Aldrich directing Mara down progressively smaller roads until they were on gravel paths that barely qualified as streets. The landscape shifted from highway sprawl to dense forest, the kind of wilderness that felt untouched by the modern world. "There," Aldrich said, pointing to a shape barely visible through the trees. A church. Stone walls covered in ivy, a collapsed section of roof, windows long since shattered. It sat in a clearing like a forgotten monument, its cross tilted at an angle that suggested decades of neglect. "You're kidding," Mara said. "It's consecrated ground." Or it was before it was abandoned 50 years ago. Aldrich was already climbing out. "Certain protections remain. Old magic that predates the church itself. I thought vampires couldn't enter churches."
A myth.
"We simply find them uncomfortable." He lifted a sleeping Evan from the back seat. "But my enemies will find it more uncomfortable than I will. It buys us time." Inside, the church was both beautiful and heartbreaking. Moonlight streamed through holes in the roof, illuminating rotted pews and a crumbling altar. Birds nested in the rafters. The floor was a carpet of dead leaves and broken glass. But in the back, a small room that must have been the priest's quarters remained mostly intact. For walls, a solid door, and only one small window. "We'll stay here until nightfall," Aldrich said, setting Evan down on a dusty blanket Mara spread across the floor. "Then we continue north." "To where?" "The old court." Where this began, he moved to the window, staring out at the forest. "It's the only place I might find allies. If any remain loyal." Mara slumped against the wall, every muscle screaming. Evan and Leora curled up together on the blanket, 2 exhausted children who'd seen far too much. The sight made her throat tight. "This oath thing," she said quietly. "Explain it to me." Aldrich turned. In the dim light, his features seemed softer, more human. "It's an ancient binding. When a vampire of royal blood is saved selflessly by a mortal, a connection forms. Your life becomes precious to me in ways that override even my instinct for self-preservation. So you're my bodyguard now. More than that. If you're threatened, I'll feel it. If you're hurt, I'll know. The distance between us becomes difficult to maintain." He paused. "It's not servitude. It's protection born from genuine debt. I didn't ask for this. I know. But the magic doesn't require permission. It simply is." He moved closer, and Mara caught that scent again, leather and copper and something older. "I can strengthen it. Make the bond powerful enough to shield you from vampire detection, to give me the power I need to face my enemies."
How?
"A ritual. Blood magic, but nothing dangerous. A few drops from you, mixed with mine, spoken over with the old words." He gestured to the altar visible through the doorway. "This place still holds enough sacred energy to amplify it." Mara's instinct was to refuse. Every rational part of her brain screamed that blood magic with a vampire was a terrible idea. But the rational part of her brain also said vampires weren't real, and that theory had died somewhere around the motel parking lot. Will it hurt?
No.
You'll feel warmth, nothing more. She looked at Evan, sleeping peacefully despite everything. The hunters had tried to kill him. Would have killed him if she hadn't acted. If this keeps my son safe, she said, then do it. They moved to the main sanctuary. Aldrich swept leaves from the altar with surprising reverence, revealing stone carved with symbols that predated Christianity, spirals and circles, geometric patterns that seemed to shift in the moonlight. This church was built on an older site, he explained. A place where humans and my kind once met in peace. That energy remains. He produced a small knife from his coat. Your hand. Mara extended her palm, trying not to flinch as he made a quick, shallow cut. Blood welled up, darker than she expected in the moonlight. Aldrich cut his own palm, and his blood ran almost black. He pressed their hands together over the altar. The warmth Mara had felt before returned, but stronger now. It flooded up her arm, spread through her chest, wrapped around her heart like a fist. Not painful, but intense, like standing too close to a fire. Aldrich spoke in a language she didn't recognize. The words felt old, heavy with power. The air around them began to shimmer. By blood freely given, he said, switching to English. By life saved without condition, by oath sworn under sacred stone, I bind myself to this mortal. Her life is my purpose. Her safety is my duty. From this moment until my final death, I am her shield. The warmth exploded into heat. Mara gasped as something fundamental shifted inside her, like a door opening in a room she didn't know existed. She could feel Aldrich, actually feel him, his presence, his thoughts brushing against hers. Emotions flooded through the connection, his bone-deep exhaustion, his determination, his guilt over dragging her into this nightmare. And beneath it all, something that surprised her, genuine gratitude. Then the feeling faded to a gentle hum at the back of her mind. Their hands separated. The cuts had already closed. Is it done? Mara's voice sounded strange to her own ears. Yes, Aldrich swayed slightly, then steadied himself. The bond is set. You're protected now. They can't track you through me anymore. And you. He smiled, and it transformed his face. I feel stronger than I have in months. Thank you, Mara. She flexed her hand, staring at the unmarked palm. This is insane. Welcome to my world. A sound from outside, a twig snapping. Both of them froze. Aldrich moved to the window with inhuman speed. We're not alone, he whispered. Someone's in the forest. Watching. More hunters? No, his expression was puzzled. Something else. Something older. Mara's new awareness of him picked up his confusion, his wariness. Whatever was out there, even a vampire king found it concerning. Should we run? Not yet. Let's see what it wants. They waited in tense silence as footsteps approached the church entrance. The door creaked open. A woman stepped through the doorway. She was ancient, not in appearance but in presence. Her skin was dark and lined with age, her white hair bound in intricate braids. She wore layers of tattered shawls that might have been beautiful once, and her eyes. Her eyes were clouded white, completely blind. Yet she looked directly at Aldrich. Your Majesty, she said, her voice like wind through dry leaves. You've strayed far from your throne. Aldrich placed himself between the woman and Mara.
Ora con essa.
I thought you died in the purge. Many thought that. I encouraged it. The old woman moved forward with surprising grace, her walking stick tapping against the stone floor. But the sight doesn't die easily. Neither do those who carry it. What are you doing here? Following the threads. The pattern shifted 3 days ago, violently. A king dethroned, an oath bond formed, and a child's power awakening far too early. Her blind eyes shifted toward the back room. She's here, isn't she? The hunter's heir? Mara's blood chilled. How do you know about Leora? I know many things, child. I see the paths that were, that are, and that might be. Nessa moved past Aldrich without fear. The girl is in danger. Greater danger than you realize. They followed her to the back room. Leora sat bolt upright on the blanket, wide awake despite having been asleep moments ago. Her dark eyes were fixed on the old woman. You hear them now, don't you? Nessa asked gently. The whispers. The voices in the spaces between thoughts. Leora's small voice cracked. They won't stop. They keep saying I have to wake up. That I have to remember. Remember what? Mara knelt beside her, protective instinct flaring. Nessa lowered herself to the floor with difficulty. May I? She asked Leora, extending a weathered hand. Leora hesitated, then placed her small hand in the oracle's. The old woman's eyes rolled back. Her body went rigid, and when she spoke again, her voice had changed, layered, as if multiple people spoke through her at once. Blood of the 13. Last of the silver line. Born with the gift, cursed with the burden. She who can unmake what feeds on blood, who can silence the eternal hunger. The oracle's hand tightened on Leora's. The child carries the nullification. It sleeps in her marrow, but it's waking. Too soon. Far too soon. Aldrich moved forward. She's too young. The nullification doesn't manifest until adulthood. The old rules are breaking. Nessa's eyes snapped back to normal. She released Leora's hand, breathing hard. Your enemies know what she is, Aldrich. That's why they hunt her so desperately. If they kill her before the power fully awakens, they eliminate the only threat to their reign. What's the nullification? Mara demanded. Someone explain in words I can understand. Aldrich ran a hand through his hair. Leora's bloodline, the Silver Hunters, were humans born with the ability to neutralize vampire powers. Not kill us, but render us mortal temporarily. Vulnerable. When a nullifier comes of age, they can strip a vampire of supernatural strength, speed, healing, everything that makes us what we are. And she's the last one.
Yes.
Her parents were murdered by my enemies precisely to end the bloodline. I saved her when she was 4 years old. The nullification shouldn't manifest until she's at least 16. He looked at Leora with genuine concern. But something's accelerating it. The oath bond, Nessa said. When you bound yourself to the human woman, you created a surge of old magic. It's resonating with the child's latent power, forcing it to wake prematurely. Mara felt sick. I did this? I hurt her? You saved a king and triggered ancient magic. The oracle struggled to her feet. The consequences ripple in all directions. But the girl's awakening isn't necessarily bad. If she can learn to control it, she becomes your greatest weapon. Leora started crying, quiet, heartbroken sobs. I don't want to be a weapon. I just want my parents back. Mara pulled the girl into her arms, rocking her gently. Evan stirred in his sleep nearby, but didn't wake. It's okay, sweetheart. We've got you. The voices say I have to choose, Leora whispered. They say I can save everyone or destroy everything. But I don't know how to choose. Nessa knelt again, her clouded eyes somehow seeing straight into Leora's soul. The sight shows me 3 paths, child. In one, you die before your power wakes, and the vampires plunge the world into darkness. In another, your power wakes uncontrolled and destroys both vampire and human alike, a plague that kills indiscriminately. And the third, Aldrich asked. In the third path, you learn control. You become the bridge your parents dreamed of, the balance between species. But that path is narrow and treacherous. It requires sacrifices none of you are prepared to make. Mara held Leora tighter. She's a child. She shouldn't have to sacrifice anything. Yet she must. Nessa's voice was not unkind, just brutally honest. We all must, if we're to survive what's coming. The generals who took Aldrich's throne aren't simply seeking power. They're preparing for war, a final war between human and vampire. They believe coexistence is weakness. How much time do we have? Aldrich asked.
Days. Perhaps a week.
The girl's power is building. When it peaks, it will release, controlled or not. The generals will sense it and come with everything they have. Then we go to the old court, Aldrich decided.
Tonight.
There are artifacts there, ancient texts that might teach her control. The court is compromised, Nessa warned. Your enemies hold it. I know. But it's our only chance, he looked at Mara. I won't force you to come. This is my fight, my responsibility. I can take Leora alone. No, Mara surprised herself with the firmness of her voice. We're in this together now. Whatever this oath bond means, whatever danger we're facing, we face it as a family. The word hung in the air. Family. Such a simple word for such a complicated truth. Leora looked up at Mara with those two old eyes. You don't have to protect me. You barely know me. I know enough, Mara said softly, brushing hair from the girl's face. I know you're scared. I know you've lost everything. And I know what it's like to feel alone in the world. She glanced at Evan, still sleeping peacefully. But you're not alone anymore. None of us are.
Nessas millet, a sedge, knoving a smile.
The pattern shifts again. Interesting. Perhaps there's hope yet. She turned to leave, her walking stick tapping a rhythm on the stone. Wait, Aldrich called. Will you come with us? Your sight could. My part in this tale is nearly finished, Nessa said. But I will give you this. When you reach the court, seek the Chamber of Echoes beneath the throne room. There you'll find what the child needs. And Aldrich? She paused at the door. The woman who saved you, she's stronger than you know. Trust her instincts. They may be what saves you all. Then she was gone, disappearing into the forest like smoke. Mara looked down at Leora, still trembling in her arms. At Evan, innocent in sleep. At Aldrich, ancient and powerful, yet somehow vulnerable. We're really doing this, she whispered, walking into enemy territory. Yes, Aldrich said, but not unarmed, and not alone. The oath bond hummed between them, a reminder that their fates were now intertwined. For better or worse. They traveled by night for 3 days, sleeping in abandoned buildings and forgotten places during the daylight hours. Aldrich taught Mara things she never imagined needing to know, how to recognize vampire scent on the wind, how to mask her own presence with certain herbs, how to move silently through darkness. You're a natural, he said on the second night, watching her navigate a pitch-black warehouse without stumbling. Most humans panic without light. Most humans don't have vampire hunters trying to kill their kids, Mara replied, though secretly she was pleased by the compliment. Evan adapted with the resilience of childhood, treating the journey like an extended camping trip. He and Leora had become inseparable, whispering together in the back seat, sharing the last of their gas station snacks. Sometimes Mara caught Leora smiling, actual, genuine smiles, and the sight made her chest ache. But the closer they got to their destination, the more the girls' episodes increased. On the third night, Leora woke screaming. Not nightmares, visions. She described a great hall filled with blood, a throne made of bones, and a woman with silver eyes who kept saying the same words. The child must choose. The child must choose. Aldrich held her until the shaking stopped. The nullification is fighting to surface, he explained to Mara. Her mind can't process the power building inside her. It manifests as visions, voices, sometimes physical pain. There has to be something we can do. There is. We reach the court. We find the Chamber of Echoes. We teach her control before the power consumes her. Easy. Simple. Except for the small detail that the court was held by enemies who wanted them all dead. They crossed into Virginia on the fourth night, leaving the highway for forest roads that barely appeared on maps. The landscape grew wild, ancient trees pressing close on both sides. Mara's new awareness, the bond with Aldrich, picked up his tension increasing with every mile. We're close, he said. Another hour. What should I expect? A fortress. It was built in 1623, disguised as a plantation manor. Underground levels extend 4 stories deep. At its height, it housed 200 vampires and their human servants. His jaw tightened. Now it's a tomb for my former allies and a stronghold for those who betrayed me. Comforting. I won't let them touch you or the children. I swear it. The oath bond pulsed with his sincerity, and Mara believed him. The ruins appeared suddenly, a massive stone structure emerging from the trees like something from a gothic nightmare. 3 stories of crumbling grandeur, windows dark as dead eyes, elaborate columns strangled by vines. It looked abandoned, but Mara's instincts screamed otherwise. They're here, Aldrich confirmed. I can sense them. At least 20 vampires inside, maybe more in the lower levels. 20. Mara's voice cracked. How are we supposed to? We don't fight them. We sneak past them. He pulled the car behind a collapsed outbuilding, hidden from view. The entrance to the Chamber of Echoes is through the old servants' passage. It was designed for discretion. Most of the current occupants won't even know it exists. They left the car, moving on foot through the overgrown gardens. Statues of angels loomed from the shadows, their faces eroded by time. Evan held Mara's hand in a death grip, while Leora stayed pressed against Aldrich's side. The servants' entrance was a narrow door, half hidden by dead ivy. Aldrich produced a key, ancient iron, worn smooth by centuries of use. You kept this, Mara whispered. A king always keeps escape routes. He unlocked the door. It swung inward without a sound. Stay close.
Don't speak.
If we encounter anyone, let me handle it. Inside, the passage was barely wide enough for single file. Stone walls pressed close on both sides, and the air smelled of earth and decay. Aldrich led them down, stairs carved directly into bedrock, spiraling deeper into the earth. Mara's sense of direction vanished. They could have been descending for 5 minutes or 50. The only constant was Aldrich's presence ahead, a point of certainty in the darkness. Finally, the passage opened into a vast underground chamber. Mara's breath caught. The space was enormous, easily the size of a cathedral. Stone columns carved with intricate patterns supported a vaulted ceiling. The walls were covered in symbols that seemed to shimmer and move in the dim light of Aldrich's phone flashlight. The Chamber of Echoes, Aldrich whispered, built by the first vampires who sought peace with humans. The magic here is old. Older than my bloodline. In the center of the chamber stood a circular platform surrounded by 12 stone pillars. Each pillar bore a different symbol, geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. This is where Leora's ancestors trained, Aldrich explained, where they learned to control the nullification. The chamber resonates with their power still. He led Leora to the platform. The moment her feet touched the stone, the symbols on the pillars began to glow, soft blue light that spread across the floor in rippling patterns. Leora gasped. It's singing. The stones are singing. Can you hear what they're saying? Aldrich asked. The girl closed her eyes. They're teaching me, showing me how to, she frowned, concentrating. How to breathe the power out instead of holding it in. How to let it flow instead of fighting it. Good. That's good. Aldrich knelt beside her. The nullification isn't a weapon, Leora. It's a gift. Your ancestors used it to protect, not destroy. To create balance. The glow intensified. Mara watched in awe as the light began to center on Leora, wrapping around her like a cocoon. The girl's hair lifted in an unfelt wind, and her eyes opened, glowing with the same blue radiance.
Nana.
Evan whispered, pressing against Mara's side. It's okay, baby. She's okay.
But was she?
The power radiating from Leora was immense, alien. For a moment, Mara saw what the girl could become, a force of nature, capable of reducing the strongest vampire to helpless mortality. Then Leora exhaled, and the light softened. When she opened her eyes again, they were normal, but something fundamental had changed. The frightened child had been replaced by someone older, wiser. I understand now, she said quietly. The voices were trying to help. They were memories, my ancestors, teaching me through the bloodline. Can you control it? Aldrich asked. I think so. It's still growing, but I can feel it now. I can shape it. She looked at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. I won't hurt anyone by accident. Thank God, Mara breathed. A slow clap echoed through the chamber. They all spun toward the sound. A figure stood in the passage entrance, a woman in an elegant black dress, her platinum hair gleaming in the blue light. Beautiful, cold, and utterly predatory. How touching, she said, her voice dripping with mockery. The fallen king, teaching the little weapon to control herself. But I'm afraid we can't allow that. Behind her, more figures emerged from the shadows. 20 vampires, just as Aldrich had predicted. Maybe more. They were surrounded. Aldrich stepped in front of Mara and the children, his body tense. Serafina, I should have known you'd claim the throne. The woman smiled. Someone had to. You always were too soft, Aldrich. Too concerned with peace and balance. The old ways are returning. The way it should be, humans as cattle, vampires as apex predators. Over my corpse. That, Serafina said pleasantly, can be arranged. She raised her hand, and the vampires advanced. Aldrich moved faster than Mara's eyes could follow. He intercepted the first 3 vampires in a blur of motion, his fist connecting with brutal efficiency. Bodies flew backward, crashing into pillars. But more surged forward, and even with his speed, he couldn't be everywhere at once. Stay on the platform, Aldrich shouted. The symbols will protect you. Mara dragged Evan and Leora to the center of the circular stone. The blue light intensified around them, and the advancing vampires recoiled as if struck by an invisible barrier. Clever, Serafina observed from her position by the entrance. But temporary. The old magic is fading. It won't hold them forever. She was right. Already the glow was flickering, dimming. Aldrich fought like a demon, fast, brutal, efficient. But he was one against many, and centuries without proper feeding had weakened him. A vampire caught his shoulder, claws raking deep. Another landed a blow to his ribs that Mara heard crack from across the chamber. The oath bond flared with his pain, and Mara gasped, feeling phantom agony bloom across her own body.
Nah.
Evan clutched her leg, terrified. It's okay, baby. Just stay close. Actually, a new voice said from behind them. It's not okay at all.
Mara spun.
A man stood on the platform with them, a vampire who'd somehow bypassed the barrier. Young-looking, with red hair and a cold smile. He must have been hiding in the chamber all along, waiting. Did you really think we'd leave the chamber unguarded? He reached for Leora. The generals want the girl. Preferably alive. But dead works too. Mara didn't think. She grabbed the nearest pillar, using her body as a shield between the vampire and Leora. Don't touch her. The vampire laughed. How noble. But you're just human. Leora's eyes flashed blue. The vampire's laughter died. He stumbled backward, confusion washing over his face. What did you? I took it away, Leora said quietly, her small voice carrying unnatural weight. Your strength, your speed, your healing, all of it. The vampire looked at his hands in horror. They were shaking, mortal hands now, vulnerable and weak. You little, he lunged at her. Mara didn't hesitate. She shoved him hard, using his own momentum against him. He tumbled off the platform, crashing into the stone floor below. Without his supernatural resilience, the fall did real damage. He groaned, trying to rise but couldn't. Mama, you pushed him. Evan's voice held equal parts fear and awe. I know, baby. I know. Mara's hands were shaking. She'd never hurt anyone in her life. But for her children, for these children, she'd do it again. Serafina's expression darkened. Impressive. The child's power is stronger than we thought. She gestured to her vampires. New plan. Kill them all. The girl's too dangerous to live. The barrier collapsed completely. Vampires swarmed the platform from all sides. Aldrich roared, fighting toward them, but he was too far away. Mara grabbed both children, trying to shield them with her body, knowing it was useless. Leora raised her hands. Blue light exploded outward in a shockwave. Every vampire within 20 feet dropped to their knees, screaming. Their supernatural features melted away, fangs receding, eyes losing their inhuman glow, movements becoming slow and clumsy. The nullification had stripped them bare, reducing them to what they'd been before turning. Just humans.
Confusa, terrifia, mortal humans. Impossible, ce raffinable est-aide.
She's too young to have that much power. Nothing's impossible, a familiar voice said. Mara turned to see Oracle Nessa standing on the platform beside them. The old woman must have followed them, moving through the passages unseen. The pattern demanded I return, Nessa said, her clouded eyes fixed on Seraphina. You were always meant to fail here, child. I saw it 3 nights ago. Shut up, old witch. Seraphina snarled, but there was fear in her voice now. Aldrich used the distraction. He broke free from his attackers, still weakened but determined, and reached the platform. Blood streamed from a dozen wounds, but he positioned himself between Seraphina and the others. It's over, he said. Your vampires are mortal now. They have no power here. This isn't over, Seraphina's face twisted with rage. Even if I fail, the other generals will come. They'll never stop hunting you. Any of you. Then I'll face them, Aldrich's voice was steel. One by one, or all at once. I am still king, and I will reclaim my throne. You're a fool, but Seraphina was backing toward the passage now, calculating retreat. Clinging to outdated ideals, protecting humans who would slaughter us all if they could. Not all humans, Mara said, surprising herself by speaking. Some of us just want to live. To raise our children in peace. You're the one who wants war. Seraphina's eyes locked on Mara. The human speaks. Tell me, cattle, when this is over, when Aldrich rebuilds his precious court, what do you think will happen to you? You're a liability. A loose end. He'll have to kill you to protect his secrets. Enough, Aldrich growled. But Seraphina pressed on, vicious. Or maybe he'll turn you. Make you one of us. Would you like that, human? To watch your son age and die while you remain frozen? To feel the hunger gnawing at your gut, demanding blood. I said enough. Power rolled off Aldrich in waves. Even weakened, he radiated authority. Go. Run to your remaining generals and tell them this. I'm coming. And I'm bringing the nullifier with me. Anyone who stands against peace will face us both. Seraphina's smile was pure poison. This isn't over, Aldrich. Not by a long shot, she gestured, and her remaining vampires, those who hadn't been caught in Leora's blast, retreated with her into the passage. Within seconds, they were gone. The chamber fell silent except for the groans of the nullified vampires scattered across the floor. They were already beginning to recover. The nullification would wear off eventually, but for now, they were harmless. Aldrich swayed, his wounds bleeding freely. Mara caught him before he fell. Easy, she said. You're hurt. I'll heal, but he leaned on her anyway, and through the bond, she felt his exhaustion. Thank you. All of you. We couldn't have survived without. The ceiling shuddered. Dust rained down from above. Somewhere in the distance, stone cracked with a sound like thunder. What's happening? Mara shouted. Nessa's expression was grim. The generals are destroying the court. If they can't have it, neither can you. The whole structure is coming down. We need to leave, Aldrich said.
Now.
A massive crack split the ceiling. A chunk of stone the size of a car crashed down, missing them by feet. The pillars began to crumble. The passage. Aldrich pointed, but even as he spoke, the entrance collapsed, tons of rubble blocking their escape route. They were trapped. There. Nessa pointed her walking stick toward the far wall. Another passage, behind the false stone. Hurry. Aldrich stumbled forward, running his hands across the carved wall. I don't see. Because you're looking with your eyes. Use your blood. This place was built by kings. Understanding flashed across Aldrich's face. He pressed his bleeding palm against the wall, and ancient mechanisms groaned to life. A section of stone swung inward, revealing a narrow passage barely wide enough for single file. Another tremor shook the chamber. The entire ceiling sagged. Go! Aldrich shoved Mara toward the opening. Take the children. Mara grabbed Evan's hand, pulling him into the passage. Leora followed, then Nessa. But when Aldrich tried to enter, the walls shuddered violently, and part of the entrance collapsed, blocking his path. Aldrich. Mara screamed. Keep moving. His voice came from the other side of the rubble. I'll find another way.
No.
We're not leaving you. Go. A massive section of ceiling crashed down exactly where they'd been standing seconds before. Through the oath bond, Mara felt Aldrich's determination and his fear. Not for himself.
For them.
Nessa grabbed Mara's arm with surprising strength. The passage leads up. We must move, or we all die here. Mara's heart tore in two directions. But Evan was crying, Leora was terrified, and the mountain of stone was collapsing around them.
She ran.
The passage climbed steeply, stairs carved roughly into rock. Behind them, the sounds of destruction grew louder, explosions, screaming metal, the death roar of a fortress that had stood for 4 centuries. Faster.
Nessa urged.
For a blind old woman, she moved with shocking speed. They burst out into night air, emerging from a hidden exit into the forest. The manor house loomed behind them, flames now licking from its windows. Explosions rocked its foundation. The vampires were systematically destroying the underground levels. Mama, where's Aldrich? Evan asked between sobs. I don't know, baby. I don't. Mara stopped, clutching her chest. The oath bond had gone quiet. Not severed. She'd know if Aldrich had died. The oracle had said as much. But distant. Muffled. As if something blocked their connection. He's trapped, Leora whispered. Her eyes glowed faintly blue. I can feel him. He's in the throne room, 3 levels down. They've sealed the exits. They're going to bury him alive. Then we get him out, Mara said. Are you insane? Nessa shook her head. The building is collapsing. The generals have fled. There's no way. There's always a way, Mara's voice was steel. She looked at Leora. Your power. Can you use it from here? Can you weaken the vampires still inside? Maybe. If I can see them, or if someone I trust can guide me. Understanding dawned on the girl's face. The oath bond. You're connected to Aldrich. I can use that connection like a bridge. Do it. Mara, this is suicide, Nessa warned. Even if the girl weakens them, the structure is unstable. You'll die down there. Then I die. Mara looked at Evan, her beautiful boy, and her heart broke. But she thought of Aldrich, who'd protected them without hesitation, who'd sworn an oath to shield her family with his life, who'd become family himself in the strange days since the storm. Mrs. Chen's number is in my phone, she told Nessa, pressing it into the old woman's hands. If I don't come back, get Evan to her. She'll take care of him. Ma? No. Evan grabbed her waist, sobbing. Don't go. Mara knelt, pulling him close. I have to, baby. Aldrich saved us. Now I have to save him. But I promise, I'm coming back. She kissed his forehead, breathing in his little boy's smell of sweat and fear and innocence. Be brave for me.
Can you do that?
He nodded, tears streaming down his face. Mara stood, looking at Leora. I'm ready. The girl took her hand. Blue light flared around them both. Mara gasped as power flooded through the oath bond. Not Aldrich's power, but Leora's, using their connection as a conduit. She could feel every vampire in the collapsing structure, their positions mapped in her mind like stars. And there, 3 levels down, surrounded by rubble and fire, Aldrich. Now, Leora whispered. The nullification exploded outward. Every vampire in the ruins suddenly lost their supernatural strength. Mara felt it through the bond, their confusion, their sudden weakness. Without their power, they couldn't hold the structure. They fled, scrambling for exits on mortal legs. "The path is clear," Leora said. "But you have minutes. Maybe less." Mara ran. She plunged back into the smoke-filled manor, covering her mouth with her shirt. The grand staircase was blocked, but she found a servant's stair, half-collapsed but passable. Down she went, into heat and darkness, following the bond's pull like a compass needle pointing home. Second level. Flames everywhere. Third level. The air was thick enough to choke on. The throne room doors hung off their hinges. Inside, Aldrich lay pinned beneath a massive stone beam. His face was gray, his breathing shallow. All around him, the walls were cracking, ready to complete their collapse. "Mara?" His eyes widened in disbelief. "Why did you need to leave?" "Shut up," she grabbed the beam, pulling with everything she had. It didn't budge. "Help me." "Push." "I can't. The nullification. I have no strength." "Then we do this the human way." Mara looked around frantically. There, a piece of broken pillar, long enough to use as a lever. She wedged it under the beam. "When I lift, you pull yourself out." "Mara." "On 3. She threw her weight onto the lever.
1,
2, 3. The beam shifted. Just inches, but enough. Aldrich dragged himself out, gasping. The ceiling groaned ominously. "Now we run." Mara hauled him upright, slinging his arm over her shoulders. He was heavy, dead weight, but adrenaline made her strong. They staggered through the throne room as it disintegrated around them. The servants' stairs were collapsing, the walls closing in. Mara's lungs burned, her muscles screamed, but she didn't stop. The oath bond suddenly flared to life, not quiet anymore, but blazing. She felt Aldrich's power returning as Leora's nullification faded. His strength flooded back, and he was able to support his own weight. "Together," he said, and they ran side by side. They burst from the manor entrance, just as the entire structure folded in on itself with a roar like the end of the world. The shockwave threw them forward into the grass. Mara lay there, lungs heaving, unable to believe she was alive. "You came back," Aldrich said quietly. "You risked everything to save me. That's what family does." The oath bond pulsed between them, not just magic anymore, but something earned, something real. The ruins smoldered behind them as dawn threatened the horizon. Aldrich could feel the approaching sunlight like a physical weight, but for the first time in weeks, he didn't fear it. The oath bond, strengthened by Mara's selfless act, wrapped around him like armor. It wouldn't prevent the burns entirely, but it would give him precious minutes of tolerance. Enough to say what needed to be said. "The generals will regroup," he said, watching the last flames die. "Serafina will gather allies. This fight isn't over." "I know." Mara sat in the grass, Evan curled in her lap, finally asleep from exhaustion. "So, what do we do?" "We build something better." Aldrich looked at the destroyed court, 400 years of history reduced to rubble. "The old ways are dead. Maybe they needed to die. But we can create something new." "A kingdom where humans aren't prey?" Nessa asked. The old oracle sat nearby, her blind eyes watching things only she could see. "More than that. A kingdom where humans and vampires stand as equals. Where children like Leora don't have to choose between their human heart and their supernatural gift." He glanced at the girl, who sat beside Evan, watching over him with protective intensity. "Where the nullification isn't a weapon, but a safeguard. A promise that neither species can dominate the other." "That's a beautiful dream," Mara said softly. "But dreams don't change reality."
No.
"Action does." Aldrich stood, offering her his hand. "And I can't do this alone. I need allies. People who believe in peace enough to fight for it. You want me to help you rebuild a vampire kingdom?" Mara laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm a single mom who cleans hotel rooms.
I'm nobody.
You're the woman who saved a king twice without asking for anything in return. You're the mother who faced down vampires to protect two children who weren't even yours. Aldrich's voice was fierce. You're not nobody, Mara Reeves. You're exactly who I need. The first rays of sun broke through the trees. Aldrich flinched, smoke beginning to rise from his exposed skin. But he didn't move, holding Mara's gaze.
The dawn, she said.
You need shelter. In a moment, he knelt before her, ignoring the pain. I was a king who ruled through power and fear. I maintained peace through strength alone. But that peace was fragile. It shattered the moment my enemies saw weakness. He placed his hand over his heart. You've taught me something these past days. True peace doesn't come from domination. It comes from connection, from family, from trust. Leora moved to stand beside him, her small hand finding his shoulder. I want to help too, she said quietly. My parents died believing humans and vampires could live together. I want to make that real.
Nessa shukled.
The pattern crystallizes. 3 paths become one. The king, the mother, and the child, bound by oath, by choice, by love. Perhaps there's hope for this broken world after all. Mara looked at them all, at Aldrich, burned by sunlight but refusing to retreat, at Leora, ancient power in a child's body, choosing protection over vengeance, at Nessa, who'd seen the future and come back anyway, at Evan, innocent but adapting, learning to be brave. If I do this, Mara said slowly, we do it my way. No more running. No more hiding. We find a place, a real place, and we make it safe. For all of us. Agreed. And Evan comes first. Always. If there's ever a choice between your war and my son's safety, your son's safety comes first, Aldrich interrupted. I swear it. The oath binds me to protect him as fiercely as I protect you. Mara studied his face, searching for deception. She found only sincerity, and something else. Respect. Maybe even affection. There's a property, Nessa said, in the Blue Ridge Mountains. An old estate that once housed a community of humans and vampires living in peace. It failed 50 years ago, but the land remains. Protected. Hidden. It could be a new beginning. How do you know about this? Mara asked. I told you. I see things, the oracle smiled. And I've been preparing for this moment longer than you've been alive, child. The pattern demanded it. Aldrich finally retreated to the shade of the trees, his skin smoking. Then we go there. We establish a sanctuary. We reach out to vampires who remember the old peace, and to humans brave enough to join us. And when your enemies come? Mara challenged. We'll be ready, he looked at Leora. With a nullifier who can level the field, and humans who fight as fiercely as any vampire, we have a chance. The sun climbed higher. Birds sang their morning songs, oblivious to the night's violence. In the distance, sirens wailed, the human world responding to the fire, to the destruction. They would have questions. Investigations. We need to leave, Mara said, gathering Evan into her arms. He stirred but didn't wake. Before someone finds us here. They walked to the car together, a strange family forged by impossible circumstances. A vampire king without a throne. A single mother who'd lost everything to gain something unexpected. 2 children carrying the weight of 2 worlds. And an oracle who'd seen this ending and chosen it anyway. Aldrich paused before climbing into the trunk, his daylight refuge, and looked back at the ruins. What are you thinking? Mara asked. That I ruled for 4 centuries and maintained peace through force. But in 5 days I learned more about true strength than in all those years. He met her eyes. You taught me that, Mara. You and your son. You reminded me what's worth protecting. Don't get sentimental on me now, she said, but her voice was soft. We have a long drive ahead. Indeed. He climbed into the trunk, Leora settling beside him under heavy blankets. Before Mara closed the lid, he caught her hand. Thank you. For everything. For believing in something impossible. Maybe impossible things are just things nobody's been brave enough to try yet. She closed the trunk, started the engine, and headed north.
Toward mountains.
Toward sanctuary.
Toward a future nobody could predict.
In the back seat, Evan woke slowly.
Mama?
Where are we going? Mara looked at him in the rearview mirror, at his sleep-creased face and trusting eyes. She thought about everything they'd lost, their home, their normal life, their innocence. And everything they'd gained, family, purpose, the knowledge that courage came in many forms. We're going home, baby, she said. A new home, with new family. Will Aldrich be there? And Leora?
Yes.
They'll be there. Good, Evan settled back into his seat, satisfied. I like them. I like them too, Mara thought. Against all reason, against every instinct of self-preservation, she'd come to care for the vampire king and the little girl with world-ending power. Through the oath bond, she felt Aldrich's presence, steady, protective, grateful. They were connected now, bound by magic and by choice, by blood and by trust. The sun rose fully, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. A new day, a new beginning. Mara drove toward it, leaving the ashes of the old world behind, carrying the seeds of something better. A kingdom built not on domination, but on connection. Not on fear, but on faith. It wouldn't be easy. Enemies would come. Challenges would arise. But they would face them together, human and vampire, mother and king, mortal and immortal.
Family.
The word no longer felt strange. It felt like truth. And truth, Mara had learned, was worth fighting for. The mountains rose ahead, their peaks touching clouds, promising shelter and sanctuary. Somewhere among those ancient hills, they would build their future. One day at a time. One choice at a time. Together. The end.